getting ahead of the 2026 NFL draft class. And we're going to look at Headley and Drew's top 15 wideouts. Very early in the process, this is subject to change quite a bit over the course of the next 8 to 10 months. But based on summer scouting to this point, Headley and Drew have kind of narrowed down their list in terms of who the top receivers are.
You know, when people look at this year's class, you know, they're going to say it's a weak wide receiver class. And I think the reason they're saying that, there's no real top 10, top 15 wide receiver. I think people hate a little bit on this class because of that. But in its entirety, bro, like, this class has a lot of solid wide receivers. Sometimes these slot receivers, especially nowadays, they get a lot of love, man. Even the big receivers are coming inside to the slot. I think that's why the receiver class, they say, oh, it's weak, but it's not weak. It's just not top heavy.
I agree with Headley in terms of us being spoiled, and I think that's part of the issue. So every year when you talk about a particular position group, and it happens pretty early in the process, even before, maybe right after the draft, maybe a couple days after the draft, a week after the draft, you know, you have the draft folks will get in there, get on Twitter, get on X, and say, you know, this particular group of player, whatever, receiver, running back, quarterback, whatever it is not going to be strong, and they're already looking towards the following year. I saw a tweet where somebody was like, yo, this receiving group is weak, bro, and I don't think that's the right word. I just don't think it's as strong as last year. These receivers that we're going to talk about, and there's probably some that will make some moves, obviously, this year. I think these are going to be extremely productive wide receivers when they make it to the league, bro. I really do.
I want to start at the top, and then we'll work our way down.
We're starting. Hey, bro, you start right at the top, bro. I wasn't expecting that. I ain't ready, bro.
Let's talk about Jacoby Link.
I think I might have a tell, if you will, when it comes to this scouting thing, right? Is players I'm not aware of or that I'm not familiar with. That if you surprise me, I give you a couple of more stars. I give you a little bit more love. I give you a little bit more kudos, okay? So I think that's a problem. So I might need to check myself when it comes to that. But I don't necessarily think this guy falls under that, but he did surprise me. Okay. 6'4", 195, allegedly. This is a guy who had 12 touchdowns on 43 receptions, bro. If you do the math, that is 3.58 and some change. So let's round up because that's what they taught us in school. 3.6 every 3.6 receptions, that's a touchdown. That's crazy, bro. And that's extremely productive. And this dude is a red zone beast. One corner that I do like this year is Christian Gray over there for Notre Dame. Absolutely abused my guy, bro. Whether it was off coverage, on coverage, press coverage, it didn't matter. He abused him. All right. And I figured that guy to be one of the top corners coming out in this next year's draft, or this upcoming draft, I should say. I have the best hand-to-eye coordination in the class. Make catches over his shoulder, one-handed with defenders draped all over him, catching balls thrown when he's falling down. We need to check those hands to see how big they are. And he's catching balls with defenders incoming, not scared of there's no alligator arms with this guy. He's willing to put those arms out there, make the catch, take the hit, get up. And he's got this aura. Okay, next play, let's get it. You know what I'm saying? To kind of permeate the team. So there's that intangible, right? Tracks the ball well, can make catches consistently with defenders all over him, specifically down the field. You see this consistently. Like a lot of his catches, bro, it's like highlight stuff, bro. And it's consistent. You know, you have a catch here, catch there with certain guys. You know, okay, can he do that again? You never actually ever see that again. But with this guy, you see it consistently, bro. At the line, we always talk about, you know, how does a receiver react when they're pressed, right? And we know Notre Dame, that's one of the things they're going to ask their corners to press. And you saw that consistently, and it really wasn't an issue with him. He's willing to mix it up with anybody. He has early eyes. There's two guys that I noticed with this. Early eyes, late hands, bro. And you know how you were taught back in the day, bro, you know, if you're a corner, you're kind of running down and when do I turn my head, right? I turn my head when he turns his head and the eyes get big and you watch the hands, bro. I can't see inside his helmet as he's running down the field, bro. But based on what the corner is doing, I think they're waiting for the eyes to get big. His eyes don't get big. And then, okay, well, if his eyes aren't get big, let me check the hands. Well, if the hands come up late, now as a corner, I'm behind now, right? Because I can't make the play on the football. And I think he has that in spades. And I'll talk about another player that does the same thing. I think he's going to have defenders commit a lot of pass interferences because of that. Because now I'm in panic mode because I don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm not sure when the ball's coming, how it's coming, and I know this guy has strong hands, so I need to put my hand between his hands and the ball, but I don't know when it's coming, so I might be early, I might be a little premature, and that may cause some pass interferences. Also, I wanted to check how he is in the run game. Yeah, he got it, bro. He about that life. He's willing to mix it up. He'll seal you off. He'll push you in the rafters, push you on the sideline. Like, this is why I think he's receiver one for me. He's got the size. He's got the temperament. And he was a fun watch, bro. Highlight reel for me.
Headley, as I mentioned, you have Lane third overall on your rankings, and we're going to get a look at them here now. But at the very top, Headley, you got Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State. So why does he come in as receiver one for you?
I call him the smooth operator, bro. Like, he just gets open quickly. Sade, a little Sade right there, smooth operator. Play all the wide receiver positions, but he's very efficient in the slot. They'll put him in the backfield sometimes just to get the ball in his hands really quickly. Dials down on his routes, finds the open zone. See him track the ball down the field, contort his body, plays bigger than his size. After the catch, man, I love how he plays after the catch also. So as a wide receiver position, we talk about before the catch, at the catch point, and then after the catch. Those are the three things I kind of look at the wide receiver position when I'm evaluating. And he has all three of that, man. He checks all three of those boxes before the catch with his route running, at the catch point. But then after the catch also, very creative runner. They can get him in the screen game. He kind of weaves and dodge with patience. So he's not just running into the back of his blockers. A guy has that amount of patience, especially as a wide receiver. You think running backs have more patience like that, but as a wide receiver, man, he's also creative after the catch. And then blocking, that's the last element, right? Can you block also? And he does that well. Hold his block for his running backs. Get those, 5-yard runs to be like 15, 20-yard runs. So to me right now, Jordyn Tyson is the complete wide receiver. And it's kind of easy right now. Just like, hey, he's number one because what he showed on tape, this versatility to play all three receiver positions, short, intermediate, deep, before the catch, at the catch point. And after the catch, man, it's just not much weakness in his game right now. The only thing I'm looking at him, I'm not sure how fast he is, man. And it's gonna be a lot of wide receivers in this class. I'm gonna talk about like what's your speed like, man? When the combine come and we see how fast he is, and we're like, okay, he checks that final box as far as an athletic wide receiver. And then his size is a little average, but I'm not really worried about his size because, like I said, he plays a lot bigger than his size. And to me, he's just an easy option. As he's wide receiver one right now. He could be passed up because these USC boys, Lane and Lemon, they got some game to them, man. USC, I don't know, they continue to produce great wide receivers. So right now, Tyson 1, and then I got the USC boys at 2 and 3.
Let's transition to Makai Lemon. What's it that you're seeing that has you bullish on Lemon?
I got a name for you, bro. I got a name, man. We're talking about comps with Lane. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it anywhere, but when I watched Makai Lemon, he reminded me of Amon St. Brown. Prototypical slot receiver, tough across the middle. He'll block in the run game. So he has that physicality despite his size. And he's just a very aware football player. He kind of finds the soft spot in the zone. He'll pick up blitzes. He's not afraid to get physical. Like I said, willing blocker. But it's the route running for me, man. The quick twitch to separate and win early. Like he explodes off the screen. Lane, his teammate, he's the outside guy, and they're perfect complement, man. Lane does his thing on the outside, Lemon does his thing on the inside, and Lane is kind of lull you to sleep a little bit. Not Lemon. Lemon gets open quick, fast, and in a hurry off the line of scrimmage. Creative after the catch, juice. The yards after catch ability, kind of like a St. Brown. Once they catch the football, they're running for physicality and speed. He could get vertical also from the inside. So a lot of these slot guys, you want to see him get vertically, stack DBs as well. And then Drew talked about it with Lane. He also has late hands. The defender doesn't know where the ball is. So when you have those late hands, man, it's just excellent. And then, like I said, explodes off the line and he changes speeds. We talk about route pace with wide receivers. Everything ain't 0 to 100, real quick. It got to be some patience in your route running also. So I do love his route pace, changing speeds depending on, zone, man. Different things like that, man. So he does that really well. And he's a tough football player, man. He does what it takes to win. To me, he's a winning type football player. A lot of receivers, some receivers are like divas, man. They're not getting the ball. They're not blocking. They're not doing all of that stuff, man. Lemon is complete in that aspect. And like I said, man, St. Brown, I said it here first, former USC guy as well. I think Lemon and Lane, for that matter, is going to shoot up the draft board and be one of the top receivers in this class.
Yeah, the late hands is really an advanced art as it relates to playing the receiving position, right? As you guys both mentioned, they're seemingly coaching it up at USC this way. You just put the DB in a bind. DBs already struggle. You know, the vast majority of them already struggle in terms of finding the football. But when you don't tip your hand, when you don't alert them to when the ball is going to arrive, it just makes you that much more effective. So love to hear that. Love to hear that from these top receivers. You know, what's interesting here, and I'm going to pull in a little bit different bit of a graphic here, just so you can see kind of stacked up. You guys have a cluster here in terms of Antonio Williams, Carnell Tate, and Denzel Boston, right? You both have Tate just ahead of Boston, but you feel differently, a little bit more differently about Antonio Williams. So, Heather, I'm going to stay with you here on this one. Why do you have Antonio Williams ahead of Tate and Boston? What do you like about him?
Yeah, Antonio Williams, he's a guy I had to rewatch again. You know, I watched him early in the process, and I'm like, okay, he's good. I like what he does, but I had to watch him again, man. And I moved him up. That was a late audible by me because I did have Tate and Boston ahead of Williams. But I love Williams' games, man. On the rewatch, man, like, you know, although he is an inside wide receiver, he's not just an inside wide receiver. I think he could play it outside as well. He could get vertical. I love the way he stacked the DBs, make those catches in traffic, catch short, break defenders off, and get yards after the catch. So, you know, we talk about short, intermediate, and deep. I think he has all those aspects as well. But when he catches those balls, those short passes, man, he's like a running back after the catch. The movement ability, I'm a big fan of that with Antonio Williams. He kind of shake defenders off the line. I like his release to separate quickly. And then once you get to the stems, man, he knows how to, you know, am I going left? Am I going right? Am I coming back? Like he fools the defenders, man. You never know what route he's running when he's running his routes. And it's very subtle also in his movements, man, like route pace. I talk about route pace with the last guy, Lemon. You know, he has that as well. Twitchiness to get separation. I love the way he extends his arms from his body. You know, every pass is not going to be on target. It's not going to be, you know, right there on your chest. So you got to be able to extend your arms, get to the balls. It's not as accurate. I think he does that really well. He also can help in the return game as well. So, you know, I talked about Lemon and now Williams, man. These guys in Tyson, as a matter of fact, they're complete. They could do it all. I know the size might be a concern for people. Like, it's not the 6'3", 220 top wide receivers. But these guys are slot guys that could also play the outside, could play any formation to me, catch short, intermediate, or deep. So these guys, all three to me, are very similar in that asset, man. And Antonio Williams for Clemson, he's been there forever. I think he's going to have another big season here with Kate Klumnik over there. So size, he's 5'11", 190. It's not small, but, you know, some teams are like, okay, I want 6 foot above, but it's not prototypical.
It's not prototypical.
But he's another guy that plays bigger than his size. I said that with Jordyn Tyson, and I'm going to say it again with Antonio Williams. They just play bigger than their size. You know, they're not really burners, but they're very deceptive in their speed as well because of that route pace that I spoke about earlier. He just got to stay healthy, man, because he missed most of 2023. But he bounced back last year, and I'm hoping for a big season again this year. And be, you know, I think round 1, maybe round 2, top wide receiver in the 2026 class.
Get Drew's thoughts on Carnell Tate.
The hands, bro. Ability to snatch the football out of the air. That's a trait that I think a lot of people don't take into account until you start seeing drops. You start seeing receivers hit and the ball comes out. Some receivers like to, you know, in specific routes, when they're coming back to the football, they want to catch with the body instead of just, you know, creating that space between you and the defender to catch the football, right? So it's almost like a guaranteed catch, if you will, right? And obviously the quarterback loves that. So that's probably the number one thing I would say. Also, use his size and his frame through traffic to keep defenders away from the ball again. If he's not able to do that, and obviously he's using his hands to catch the football extended. He's 6'3". He's a big target. So we talk about the catch radius. Gets his head around quickly, which I think a lot of these receivers do that. And I don't hear that talked about too much, but he gets his head around quickly. I like to say that's one of the traits that the quarterback loves. He's easily finds the holes in the zone. Doesn't waste much time when breaking off his routes. He just gets into it, heads around, hands are ready, and it's a caught pass. Appears to have some juice once the ball is in his hands. He's got to get there, Didn't see him challenged at the line of scrimmage, but I assume we're going to see that this year. Might not. It is college. And I just expect his production to go up, bro.
Looking forward to Carnell Tate here in 2025. I got a little ahead of myself because I thought this whole dynamic with Tate, Boston, and Williams was really interesting. But Drew, your number 2 receiver is Nic Anderson, right? The transfer from Oklahoma. He makes his way to LSU. Let's talk about him. And then Headley, after that, we'll talk about Denzel Boston.
Yeah, Nic Anderson, 6'4", 219. And so when you talk about LSU, when you talk about the receivers that have come out there in the past, about 3-4 years, we're talking about some guys that come in and make an immediate impact. And I think this is a guy who will do that. I think his best football is ahead of him. I think he made the right decision to leave.
The 2 highest paid players at the position.
So we can talk about wide receiver U, which I just talked about, but we can also talk about wide receiver U. You feel me?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So, I guess the Tigers got a little bit of an argument, which, it's arguable. It's arguable for sure. Okay. So he is coming up with a significant upper quad tear from last year. Assumption, and my research says that he's going to be fine and he's going to be ready to go. Big, strong, physical. He's hard to bring down. Once the ball is in his hands, he eats up space quickly and uses that to his advantage when breaking off routes, working his way back to the football. And he also gets in the blind spots of the cornerbacks or the safeties, linebackers, whoever it is. So he's got a little bit of understanding of how to create separation with not just speed, but with some subtle movements, with some technical know-how, if you will, right? Reaches top speed quickly, which I appreciate. Has himself a plan at the line if he's challenged. We'll get the defender going one way while he's going the complete opposite way. If they do make contact, he has the size and the strength in the frame to kind of work through that. And essentially he's open. And he tracks the ball well down the football field. So, and then you accompany that with Garrett Nussmeier. When Nussmeier is able to drop back and do the timing and rhythm thing.
Headley, let's transition to the aforementioned Denzel Boston.
Probably one of them big outside wide receivers, stacking DBs. And while he could do that, that's not his superpower. He plays outside, but I love him on the inside in the slot. Even in those short splits, he might be the outside receiver, but he's not too far away from the tackle. He's excellent at that because he's one of those big body wide receivers. He gets after it in the run game. He makes tough contested catches, especially across the middle of the football field. You see that. I think like a team like the Rams, the Rams want their receivers to block. They want them to be physical. I think teams like that, even like the Falcons, how they use Drake London in the slot, is those bigger slot type wide receivers. And I think that's Denzel Boston all day. To me, he's like one of the easiest evaluations, man, because you know what he's going to do. He's going to get tough and physical in the run game. And then in the pass game, he's going to be across the middle, catching passes, contested catches, bodies around him. He's going to get hit. He's going to get up. It's no effect to him because of his physicality. I'm going to use the Falcons again. You get Mooney kind of clearing things out. And then Drake London is going to eat all the way in that intermediate, that short game, and just get tough physical yards, first downs, and then matriculate the ball down the field. I think that's Denzel Boston. I like his back shoulder, the timing on his back shoulder catches. He kind of field defenders and then those late hands to separate and just catch the ball. It's a thing of beauty when I watch Denzel Boston do that because he has the size, the patience, the timing for those back shoulder passes. And he reminds me of one of those big body slots, man. I'm going to throw a name out there. He didn't end his career well, but Michael Thomas for the Saints, man, like that's what he did. He was physical in the run game. He caught those slants, caught those intermediate passes across the middle, and he broke records, when he first came into the league. I know they call him Slant Boy. He was talking a lot on the X, but I think Denzel Boston fits that mold really well. The areas of improvement, I don't think he's a big-time separator, but like when you're physical at the top of your route, you don't really need to be a big-time separator, bro. You could catch contested passes. So I like that. He checks the boxes there. And he's not a blazer. He's not, running down the field 4.3 type 40 guy. But I'm okay with that because of how he wins. You got to find out these receivers and how they win and utilize them in their best capabilities and find them in the right scheme. Like I said, a team like the Rams, the Falcons, a team that likes to run the football and have one of those big body receivers across the middle of the field. I think Boston's going to be like plug and play pretty much when he gets to the next level.
It's interesting that you say that because, a couple of things there that does raise some concern, right? And certainly we hope that he can build on what he's already accomplished thus far and continue to improve his draft stock. But when you're not the best of separators and you don't have great speed, it's not that you can't play at the next level. I just don't know that those guys get a lot of opportunity, right? If you don't necessarily check that box in terms of elite athleticism and you know your film does not scream great route separation and making it very easy on the quarterback, despite some of the back shoulder prowess that he possesses and physicality at the top of his route. I've seen it. I've seen it over the years where those guys, they get pushed down the draft board, and draft capital matters to a certain degree. That isn't to say that there aren't exceptions to that, but I wonder if Boston can take a step in that department as far as being a more consistent separator, because I think it becomes that much more difficult to get your opportunity. Even if you're capable, it's harder to get your opportunity at the next level if you're not demonstrating that consistently at the collegiate level. So we'll keep an eye on that. Drew, let's talk about Elijah Sarratt out of Indiana.
So this guy might be the embodiment or the epitome of production. He's open when he's covered, which makes sense with that type of production. You know, 6'2", 209, he looks like he might be 6'4", bro. Okay? Because of the way he plays. Attacks the ball in the air, consistently makes catches over the middle, makes catches with defenders draped all over him, uses his size to his advantage, shield off defenders. I know he's 6'2", but this might be the opposite of what we normally see, bro. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the height and the weight and stuff, you say, okay, he's 6'4", you know, or he's listed at 6'4", 215, but then come to the combine, he's 6 foot, you know, 200. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's the opposite. He might be 6'4", bro. You may not be the fastest, but you might lean on that defender. And then there's this I'm going to call it the body push-off, a little body push-off to create that separation from the defender. And he does that consistently. He tracks the ball well down the football field, strong and can be physical, in press coverage, uses hands well to beat the defenders at the release and down the field when hand fighting. So this is a guy who he can, again, create separation, but if he's covered, he's open. And to me, I say this a lot, but that's a quarterback's best friend, bro. Hell, when things are going awry and things don't add, a free rusher, I just throw it up to him and see what happens, bro. Because I believe he's going to come down with the 50-50 ball.
At 7 for you, Headley, you have Kevin Concepcion. 2023, he burst on the scene as a true freshman, if I'm not mistaken, and was uncoverable. Was completely uncoverable. What do you like? What are you expecting with the transition here to A&M?
Yeah, this is another late audible by me. You know, I pulled on the 2024 tape. I'm like, okay, he's good. But I had to go back to 2023, like you said, man. That 10 TD freshman season for NC State. The tape was just a lot better. They got him involved more, especially in the running game. He's a guy that you got to get him touches, whether it's in the pass game or the running game. And for some reason last year, they didn't give him as much touches, especially in the running game. So maybe that's the reason why he transferred. And I think it's a really great decision by Concepcion, because you see him over there in Texas A&M with Marcel Reese, Le'Veon Moss, and those boys. I really like that offensive line too for Texas A&M. I like what Mike Elko got going on. They use that elusiveness and yards after catch ability. He's a running back playing wide receiver pretty much. But he also is a great route runner to me. Shifty, inside receiver. You can find that soft spot in the zone. Really good hands. Route pacing, man. Another route pace guy. The majority of these guys operate really well in the slot, and Concepcion is no different. It's plays where it's like, okay, he can't get to the edge here. And somehow, some way, the acceleration and burst to get to the edge and get more yardage after the catch or after the run, it's impressive with him. Sometimes I saw in 2024, did too much sometimes, loses balance as a route runner. I just need him to be smooth and get into his breaks. And a guy like this, man, you don't do too much, bro. Just trust your technique, trust your feet, get the ball in your hands. And he has a place on an NFL roster as a slot guy, as one of those gadget guys as well. They're going to showcase him a lot to me at Texas A&M. And like I said, the transfer was a great decision for Concepcion.
Yeah, good call. There's a nice young quarterback there at NC State, but I just think in terms of how they're deploying the offense, there's been some transition. Plus the advent of NIL that comes into play. Drew, let's go back to you here in your rankings. And you got Evan Stewart coming in at number 8 for you. Not too far off at number 10 for Headley, but you're a little higher on Evan Stewart. Drew, why is that?
We talk about Texas A&M. This is a guy who left Texas A&M to go over to Oregon. 6 foot, 175, so not a big guy. But he eats up space quickly. He played both inside and outside. Majority of the time you saw him in the slot because you want him to have that two-way go, obviously. He has a nice release package, When he was challenged at the line, he opens things up for everyone else downfield due to his speed. He has no fear of going over the middle, which I was kind of surprised, specifically at Oregon. I don't necessarily saw that at Texas A&M. I will say this: there are games that some of these receivers, they embarrass some of these corners, bro. And Denzel Burke, who we were not high on, somebody need to call Child Protective Services, because in that first game that they played Oregon, it was ugly, bro. Tracks the football very, very well down the football field for a smaller guy. He's the embodiment of speed, quickness, twitch, fast. What comes with that normally is that he's a thinner, I don't say smaller because he's allegedly 6 foot. He's thinner frame is what I'll say.
Yeah.
He will sit and not carry routes into defenders, so he helps his quarterback out in that way. And what surprised me about him is he has traits of a bigger receiver. So there's two things that I noticed. Okay, he will attack the ball in the air, which you don't necessarily see with a guy with that kind of ability, right, and frame, right? And then I know we called your boy last year the back shoulder merchant. Stewart got a little bit of that in him, bro. So, he play a little big sometimes. Just depends on what you're talking about. But yeah, that's why I got Evan Stewart where I got him.
Jump in there, Juice. I'm looking for Stewart on the depth chart. Where is Evan Stewart? Bro, he just had a major injury. He might not play this season. So he might have to come back next season as well. We'll see if he can get some games in this year.
Headley, let's talk about another transfer. Eric Singleton Jr., formerly of Georgia Tech. He's now at Auburn. What do you think he's going to do there in Auburn?
He's going to be that complement with Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman's the outside guy, not draft eligible, and Singleton's going to eat in the middle of the football field. Surprise, another inside slot wide receiver in this class, man. It's tons of them. He's a Georgia Tech transfer. He kind of like Concepcion, where they burst on the scene their freshman year in the ACC. The last season, not so much, and then we transfer. This is kind of like a trend now. Like, hey, if you're not going to get me the football, I'm going to go somewhere else that's going to get me the football. Like you say, NIL, all of that too, that's incorporated in there. And, I think it's going to be a great situation for Singleton because you got Cam Coleman on the outside. He's going to take a lot of coverage with him. And, you don't want to leave Singleton one-on-one. I call him the all-purpose weapon. You can get it in a variety of ways. I call him a triple R player, receiving, rushing, and returning. He has that in spades, the speed. He's a track guy, so he's gonna get vertical, he's gonna get horizontal, and he's gonna create separation that way. The route runner intricacies, breaking off the stems, he can improve as a route runner, but how he wins with his speed off the line, whether it's going across the middle on those drag plays, those in routes, or those vertical routes, man, he's gonna get that separation. And he's undersized though. That's the thing. Like, he's 5'10", 180, and like I said, like Antonio Williams, and Lemon, they play bigger than their size. Singleton, I don't think he plays bigger than his size, man. So when guys press him at the next level, can he hold up? As a run blocker, I don't know if he's going to hold up there either. Has that open field prowess. He's one of those guys that's going to break you off, as a runner, man. Like, he's shifty. He's dynamic in that way. He can read his blocks, his acceleration. He just has that extra gear. All the receivers we talked about, I don't know if anybody has the extra gear like Eric Singleton Jr. Going to be lights, camera, action there in Auburn, I believe.
All right, let's keep it going with your early top 15 rankings, respectively, at the wide receiver position for the 2026 NFL Draft. Drew, you got this was actually one of the players that Headley does not have on his list, so there was only one each, which again is quite interesting in its own right. You guys are seeing it fairly similarly through the early parts of this evaluation process. But Aaron Anderson, another smaller receiver here out of LSU. What do you like about him?
Another surprise for me. I was like, if I got to watch one LSU guy, I got to watch the other guy. I can't just not do it. I did it for USC, so why not do it for LSU? I got him at 5'8", 187. So that's a little concerning in terms of the 5'8" part. But this is a guy who works out the slot, obviously, who is where he's supposed to be, bro. And this is probably the biggest thing that I noticed. And you can see the trust between him and Garrett Nussmeier is he will throw this guy open. He'll throw the ball to a space, and Anderson will run under it or run to it to get the football. Not necessarily a fast route runner, but he's shifty, he's crafty, appears to track the ball well, both underthrown or down the field. There's a lot of underthrown balls or poorly thrown balls by Nussmeier, and it could have been not necessarily that he threw a bad ball, but that it was pressure, and so he had to kind of get it out in any way, shape, or form that he could. And Anderson cleaned it up, bro. He made it look pretty. He caught the football and kept on moving. Small feet who doesn't need much space to make you miss. Reminds me of a running back as his feet don't stop moving once the ball's in his hands. He's very in sync, like I said, with Garrett Nussmeier. Wouldn't surprise me if his hands are bigger than most. He reminds me of, I know Headley had a comp. He reminds me of a smaller, less explosive Jarvis Landry is what he reminded me of.
Juice Landry. Anderson seems intriguing, right? Because, again, of course, he's diminutive in terms of his height. But the way you describe his play in terms of being effectively the quarterback's best friend, like when you have that kind of trust with a receiver, it don't really matter. You know what I'm saying? What your physical stature is, assuming you're making plays on a consistent basis. So I'll keep an eye on him as well. Headley, let's talk about Zachariah Branch, man. Mind you, another USC receiver, but now he's going to be playing for the Georgia Bulldogs. What do you like about Branch?
Yeah, USC had a plethora of wide receivers, bro. They were all sophomores last year. You know, Lane was a sophomore, Lemon was a sophomore, Branch that transferred over here to Georgia, and then my other guy Hudson that we're going to talk about later, another sophomore, now junior that's at Penn State. But you know, and all of these guys, they were kind of like rotated around. So it'd be series where you like Jacoby Lane's not on the field for about 2 series. This guy's not on the field. They just had a plethora of receivers, and that's probably why these guys transferred out. They wanted to be the man wherever they went. And I think Branch, you know, is going to offer something for Georgia that they haven't had in a while. You know, the first word that comes to me is explosiveness. He's a super explosive wide receiver, bro. Lightning quick acceleration. You want to put hands on him, but it's just, you're playing with fire, bro. It's Russian roulette, because if you don't get that jamming, it's 6 points, bro, because of the explosiveness. So you kind of have to give him that cushion. And then when you give him that cushion now, he could break off, comeback route, and it's easy. It's all day. It's pitch and catch right there. Just the speed, man. The speed on the football field, you know, make it easier for everybody else in the intermediate game. Like, you can just kind of run a clear out route. You got to have 2 guys running with Branch, bro. And he has that stop-start ability as well. Body control. Even though he's a smaller guy, he can make some contested catches as well. But once the ball in his hand, man, he's another triple R player, man. Returning, rushing, receiving, bro. Like, once the ball in his hands, it's like, you got to hold your breath a little bit. A lot of speed, a lot of explosiveness. Get the ball in his hands, bro. He could go 6.
Nyck Harbor, when you talk about that prototypical size, speed combination, he obviously not only fits the bill, he exceeds it, right? He's an outlier in terms of size, speed combination, but not the most polished of receivers. We talked about him quite a bit as far as players that have a lot of expectations coming into this season. Really ballyhooed prospect. Again, you can't teach that kind of athleticism, that kind of those natural physical tools, but a lot of growth yet remains in terms of a receiver. I assume you both have him at 13. I assume just because of the upside, you gotta find a way for him to slot in terms of your top 15. Any quick thoughts on him in particular? Either of you.
I just want to see him be more productive. I want to see him hone his wide receiver skills in terms of his route running. Does he hit his potential? Does he turn the corner? I don't know, but there's a lot there that you love physically.
Like Drew said, we just got to see him more, man. Like right now, when I watch him, I'm like, he's not a natural wide receiver. Not even catching the football is very natural for him. Route running is not very natural for him. So it's like, you got to have this thing right here, and you kind of have to mold him in that clay. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like, we got to get better here, because you got something that nobody else in this class has. You have size, speed, physicality. You got it all, bro. But we just have to kind of like, you know, mold this into a better football player, bro. So this season's going to be big for him, and we'll see, because he can shoot up the board. You know, once them combines come on, man, and he runs that, and, you know, in a T-shirt and shorts, bro, or tights, bro, like, that's when he going to shine, man. But he got to show more route running to be a viable option at the next level.
A lot of expectations there with respect to him. Headley, the one player that you had on your list that Drew did not actually happens to be a Gator, right?
I'm not happy about it.
But you see something. You clearly see something in Eugene Wilson. Why don't we talk about him for a minute?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, he's on the list, man. It was hard for me to put him up there. I was trying to find somebody else, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put him up here. And The real reason I did it is DJ Lagway. I think Lagway could probably kind of showcase Wilson's ability more. He didn't have that quarterback before. So, with Lagway there, like this guy's like kind of a gadget player, like to get him the ball in space, use him on jet motion screen. So he's a smaller guy as well, but he's very creative and slippery with the ball in his hands. I've seen him run that slant, use his hands, good hands there. And he can catch through contact. For a smaller guy, he still catches the ball through contact. So he's a good football player, but I think the addition of Lagway, throwing him the football, I think could go a long way for his draft stock.
Bro, I didn't put him on my list because I didn't want to be biased. Okay, number one. Number two, injuries, bro. I need him to stay healthy.
Yes, yeah, he does need to stay healthy. He does need to stay healthy. The question for me is, are we talking about like a really good college football player, or are we talking about an actual pro prospect? I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't think that's all on Wilson. Exactly. Yeah. It's not all on Wilson because obviously quarterback play has been an issue, but then of course his health, being on the field, has been a bit of a challenge as well. Drew, why don't you talk about Malachi Fields as we wrap up these wide receiver rankings?
Yeah, I thought you was just gonna let him go, bro. I was gonna have to interject. This guy, 6'4", 220, strong, easy hands, bro. I could see somebody saying he might have the best hands in the country. Okay, just because of his ability to catch the football in any way, shape, or form, whether it's behind him, in front of him, over his shoulder, has to jump and dive and get it, highlight reel type of thing. He can adjust to the ball in the air. As big as he is at times, he can make people miss. It usually can take more than one defender to take him down. I think he's all of that 6'4", 220. Settles in the open space in zone coverage, so you like that. He's a guy who can throw. You can throw open due to his size and obviously his catch radius. He's a lot to deal with in press man coverage. He kind of embarrassed some people, man. He kind of, how the speedy guys, you don't necessarily want to jam him like a Branch, because if you miss, it's night. This is a guy who you may not necessarily want to jam him or get up there because he's gonna be a bully, man. He's a bully in the alley. Do you want to take him on? Do you have that physicality? Do you have the technique? Because he's a lot to deal with. He can win at all levels of the field, short, intermediate, or down the football field. His routes all look the same when heading down the field, and he wins with leverage and lean versus defenders, creating that separation. There's not a ton of separation, but this is a guy who doesn't need a whole lot of that. Again, this is the guy I was talking about in terms of the quick eyes, getting his head around, looking up for the ball, but with the late hands. He actually impressed me. I liked him a lot. I don't know if he's going to be able to soar up the board because I think speed might be an issue for him.
I had something on Malachi, man. I just wanted to get it in because, like Drew said, spot on analysis. The speed is going to be questioned. Separating consistently is going to be questioned. My question with him is he a wide receiver or is he a tight end? For me, I would like him to transition into a tight end. Great hands, physical after the catch. And I have a player here, man. He looks like Kyle Pitts. When I watch him, he's like a smaller Kyle Pitts. Like Pitts, man, you just got to get him going. He's like a dare. Like, he's not going to do the stop-start thing. But if you get him going either horizontally or vertically, could be very effective.
Well, as you guys mentioned, a lot of slot receivers, a handful of the X types, the guys outside the numbers. But intriguing class for sure.